To wrap up our discussion around specificity, there are two other things I need to mention. The first is inline styles, which are actually more specific than IDs and classes and elements. They are the most specific thing we've seen yet, and that's one of the reasons that almost nobody recommends. I don't think anybody recommends you use them, and almost nobody uses them. But remember, they are a valid way of styling an element. So for example, I've got an ID on this button, and I have the color set to white through that ID selector right here. It's white-ish. But if I added an inline style on that button, which is right here, I could do something like style equals, and then color is actually what's really obvious. How about coral? Sure. Just like that, and I refresh, you'll see that the text is indeed coral. It doesn't matter that there's an ID that we have used to select and set the color, because IDs are less specific than inline styles. So generally avoid inline styles. They can lead to confusion. The fact that they are separate from your actual style sheets is extra confusing, because I may not know that I actually set this style here when everything else is set in my CSS. So avoid that. And then the next other topic that I have not yet mentioned is something called importance. The important rule is something that we can use on individual style declarations. It is generally something you should not use. I don't recommend you use it, but you should know about it because you may see it, and there could be a time where it makes sense to use it. But here's what I will do. When you assign a declaration, a style declaration, as important, let's see, as you can see right here, you put it after some property. So color, red, or firebrick, important. It's exclamation point important. What that is going to do is signal to the browser that this should be the most specific possible thing, and it should override any other declarations. So technically, as you can see here, it has nothing to do with specificity, but it is, you can think of it as super specific. It's actually an exception outside of the model here. It's not like there's a calculation for important. It just wins automatically. So I'll show you an example of that. Why don't we take a look at the same button that has this ID that is making it dark blue. And instead of setting the background color to be blue here in the ID, I'll just do a generic button selector. And I'm going to give it a background color of magenta, just super obvious, right? And we only see that take effect on these buttons that don't have any more specific selectors targeting them to set that background color. But this one does. Its background color is set through an ID selector. But if I simply add on important right here, important, just like that, and refresh, now this one also has a magenta background color. So I'm kind of throwing a wrench in the whole system. I'm messing everything up by using important. Now, there are maybe some situations, like I said, where it might come in handy if you're working with styles that somebody else wrote, like an external library or a tool that you don't necessarily have control over, and you're trying to change or override something. You can use important, but generally, I don't think I've ever used it. I mean, not in the last couple of years. I haven't had a situation where I've needed it, but you should know about it. So two things that are kind of bad ideas to use. One is inline styles. The other is the important declaration, which will just ignore specificity and just make something win automatically. So both of them are there. They are things. You should know about them. And more importantly, you should know not to use them.